And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Randy Edemont, and I'm the district foundation chair. And I'm going to be tag teaming with Larry Arndt, our district grants chair, tonight. So I'm going to start off with the slides and then pass it over to Larry. So Connie, if you could bring up the slides. Um, so this is the grant training seminar for next Rotary year, 25 and 26. And our purpose tonight is really to understand the grant model. We're going to be talking about the district and not so much the global tonight. We can go on the next slide, Connie. And so next week will be the global grant training, and Andreas will be the one who's going to be on that one with me. So we want to make sure your club is qualified so you can participate next year in district grants.
Sunrise. I'm ready. Now,
And could I ask everybody to mute, please? And increase your knowledge of the MOUs and talk about the terms and conditions. And also know that the process of developing a grant is just as important as the project itself. So next slide. We do encourage clubs to support the annual fund share because it's through this fund that the district grants are funded. And we go back 3 years ago are the ones that the donations from 3 years ago fund the projects for this coming year. So we know already in the next couple of years what the amount's going to be, the rough amounts for the district grants. Also make sure that your president-elect puts in goals for next year for the foundation. And at least one club member should be on this call tonight, or if they're not on the call, to contact me or Larry, and we can get something set up for you. And the projects do involve active participation by Rotarians. So it's not just writing a check. I mean, you have to be involved as Rotarians. Besides, we are people who we're people of action. We want to get things done. And so our service is very important. We need an up-to-date financial management plan. And this is a financial management plan only for the district grant. If you haven't done one before, you're going to say, oh man, do I have to do this for the whole club? And that's not the case. It's just for this, just for the district grants. And a good copy of one is on our district website. I think it's 3 pages, and the last page is a sample one, a pretty good template you can go from. And many clubs have this done already. So if you've done a district grant in the past, chances are you've done one, and Connie has it on file. If you need to know if there is one done or not, just send me an email and we'll make sure. The club memorandum of understanding from both the Rotary Foundation and our district has to be on file. And this is a yearly or annual document that this year's president and then also the president-elect need to sign. And this is for the next Rotary year. And also there's terms and conditions, and Larry will get involved with that quite a bit. As I mentioned, the process of doing and creating the grant is just as important as the project. So the process is really essential to make sure you're in good standing for future participation. And that means timely reporting. And Larry does a good job on keeping track of the clubs and who
Be back
reports.
open. Second.
Again, please mute if you could. Uh, so when we look at some years, we have more requests for funds than we do have money. And we need to go back in and really look at some of the criteria on how we decide on which clubs can get the grant. And so if you're in good standing, it certainly is a good strong indicator that you've done well in the past. Um, so in addition to completion of the projects, clubs must manage the process by having a grants committee. The grant committee members complete the training. There's a planning and budgeting, disbursement of the funds. As I said, Rotary active participation. Larry loves to have pictures. She'll talk to you about that. So make sure you include pictures so we can tell a good story. You can tell a good story of what you're doing in your local community to help others. So public image is really important. Obtaining and maintaining receipts, and of course, submitting timely reports. Return of funds. This is on here just in case, say you have a grant that you get $1,000 from the district of matching funds, and maybe you only spend $950 of that. Well, the short answer to this is we really prefer that any remaining funds, in this case, maybe that $50, gets spent locally that's in reference to the grant. And that's going to be important because we don't really want the money back, and the Rotary Foundation doesn't really want the money back. If there's, especially if it's less than $1,000, and it would be unusual if we have more than $1,000 that need to be returned. And most clubs use all their funds every year that they get from us. So that's it in a nutshell on this slide. In the financial management plan, this is one, if you haven't had one in the past, you need to have one approved. And as I said, there's a good sample one on our District 6310 website where you can download it. If you haven't done one and you need to create one, I would really encourage you to send it my way first, and I can look it over before you submit it to your club board for approval. That way, when your club board needs to have something that's official, it is already looked at it with another pair of eyes, and it'll be good. So, and really the purpose is to maintain the segregation of duties for handling funds, maintain records for items that are purchased, produced, distributed through grant activities, and record retention for 5 years. And the bank account management, it's important that you have a dedicated separate account for each club sponsor grant, especially if you write more than 3 or more checks. The name of the account should be clearly identified for its use for grant funds. It's a low or non-interest bearing account. We really need 2 Rotary signatories for the club for disbursements. And bank statements available for receipt and use of the Rotary Foundation funds. And the management plan also includes maintaining a written plan for transferring custody of the bank accounts in the event of a change in signatories. So with that, that's my portion of the presentation. Before we go on, I guess I'll just ask, does anybody have any questions right now? If not, we'll go on to Larry.
Excuse me, I'm going to apologize right away about my voice. I'm recovering from a head cold, but Randy said I like photos. It's not that I like photos of the project. It's a requirement of the application of the grant. that photos are provided, and we'll get into that in a few minutes here. So I want to try and cover a broad range of the grant process or grant program. I see a lot of familiar names, a lot of familiar faces today, a lot of new ones, so that's great. It's imperative that if a club is going to get involved in a district grant and wants to submit the application, they read the terms of that application thoroughly. Because once you sign that application and submit it to the district, you are committing your club to everything it's required in that application. All the policies, procedures, terms, conditions. I don't like hearing months later that, oh, I didn't know that was required. So it happens too often. So please be aware of that. And if you are not the person that is chairing or on the grant committee for a specific grant for your club, make sure, I can highly recommend that every committee member, it's too late to attend this one, but the recording of this training will be provided on the district website at a later date, and it's imperative that they review that and certify via email to Randy that they've completed that. So we need to make sure that everybody's aware of the terms, conditions, and what you're committing your club to. So next slide, please. Where do the grants come from? We all know that we're donating, contributing to the Rotary Foundation and Polio Plus. So we know that the funds for the Rotary Foundation, when they're submitted by the district at fiscal year end or during the year, that total amount is taken by Rotary International, invested for 3 years. And after that, used to be 50%. I think it's 47.5% now is returned back to our district. And the foundation committee that decides how to disperse those funds. Typically 50% of that amount is available for district grants for our district clubs to work on. So we are fortunate that we have that available. That number changes every year. Give you an idea, for this current fiscal year, we had about 39,600 available. And we had total grants of 40,500. Foundation found a way to make it all work, so we were able to approve all the grants. What I will do towards the end of the presentation, I'll highlight some of the projects. Some club members that are here today want to know what can be done for projects, so we'll cover some of the projects from last year. They don't have to be redone. The idea for Rotary International is that you look for new projects in your community you can become involved in. So next slide, please.
Larry, I'm going to interrupt.
Yep.
Everyone really needs to turn off the microphone because we're getting feedback, which will result in not a very good recording. So if you haven't already done so, please mute your microphone.
And Connie, feel free to jump in if you need to identify someone that doesn't have a mic off. Let us know. This slide shows the planning ahead is necessary. For a district grant to work for your club, you need to be really working a year in advance. You should have identified already, if you haven't, within the next 60 days, the project you want to work on, because your project application needs to be submitted to me by June 30th. For the project that you want to complete during the 25-26 fiscal year. So just food for thought. I typically pull aside our president-elect the first of the year in January, sit them down and say, oh, nice for you to come up with a project that you can support during your plant term as president, and think of that project for a district grant. So that's how our club has worked for the last 5 or 6 years. So know the qualification requirements. Randy covered some of those. Know the deadlines for district grant applications. I'll cover those in detail. I just mentioned that the district grant application for 25-26 needs to be in my hands by June 30th, 2025. Form your project information committee. The application form, very first page, talks about the project's name, how much you want to apply for. And it has area for a project chairperson and 2 committee members. All 3 of those individuals need to be club members. You can't pull somebody from the outside and bring them in. They need to be club members. I can't impress enough that all 3 of those project members need to know what the project is about. They need to know the terms and conditions of being committed. If for some reason the project chair gets sick or leaves the club or moves, I'm going to rely on one of the other 2 to communicate with. And they need to know what's going on. So make sure you have a good implementation committee that they know what's going on. And all 3 of those individuals should, can't require it, but they should review this presentation once it's on a district website. Keep in mind that project activities, we ideally would like them to be short-term in nature and fit within the funding timing. I'll get into timing later, how it works, but funds typically are approved and usually available by around November 1st of each year. So don't look at a project that you want to try and do in September, October this year, because it won't work. And I'm starting to advise clubs that have holiday or Christmas programs, projects. Think hard about those, because we can't guarantee that funding will be available by November 1st. It historically has been. We've had a couple years where it hasn't. So just keep that in mind. That you cannot start your project, you cannot spend any funds on your project until after you get the final approval from me that I said that Rotary International has approved your project. The district would like these projects to be completed within a 9-month period from the date of funding. So from the time we send funds to your club, we would hope that the project is done within 9 months. Doesn't always happen. We understand that. Communicate with me. Communication is important so we know what's going on. If it takes a few months longer, let me know. We'll work with that. And there's another document that will be on the district website called the District Grant Change Summary that will have additional information. So next slide, please. 2 different categories of district grants. One is community grants. We have 3 types that we'll cover in the next slide. And then we have international grants for the vocational training teams. And keep in mind that our district grants are a dollar for dollar match. So for every dollar you request from the district, your club is infusing or injecting $1. So if you're doing a $500 minimum request from the district, your club is putting in at least $500. Maximum for a project is $4,000. If it's a new project, we'll get into that in a minute. So keep in mind, dollar for dollar match, you need to be involved in it. So next slide, please. The community grants broken down to first bullet point are new club projects. A new club project is just what it says. It's a project your club has never done before. Totally new to your club. You've never worked on it before. It's a new project that the minimum you can request from the district is $500, maximum is $4,000. So if you're asking for a $4,000 district match, you're putting in a minimum of $4,000. If the project costs more than that, you're sourcing from other sources or from your club. Now again, the maximum the district would consider is $4,000. And remember, by submitting an application, it's not a guarantee of funding. I'll explain how that process works. Second bullet point are existing club projects. So if you got a project that you have done before, has never been funded by a district grant, would fall into the existing club project where you could go up to request up to a maximum of $2,000 for the minimum of $500. Repeat projects are just what it says, repeat. It's a project you did over and over again, and you've had at least 1 or more grants from the district on that project. So we have a $500 minimum, $1,000 max. What we don't want to see, it's not just we, when I say we, the district, it's Rotary International. We don't want to see repeat projects where an entity is requiring or requiring that they're going to operate based on that grant, or a project will only run for that grant. So keep in mind, it may not be funded in any given year. It can happen. Next slide, please. I'm not going to read all these. This slide and the next slide is contained in the district grant application. We cover the district grant activities that may not be funded. Just want to highlight a couple. I just covered item D. It's provide continuous or accessible support to any one person, entity, or community. Again, I just covered that. We don't want to see a continual project that's funding one entity over and over again for the same thing. This doesn't necessarily cover items like dictionary thesaurus projects. Yes, it's a repeat project. It may be for the same school, but that third or fourth or fifth grade, whatever you're doing, changes every year for that project. Same thing with a backpack program. It may be for it's the same entity, but it's typically going to be a new group of individuals that come in for those items. Next slide, please. I'm only going to cover the highlighted items in red because they're the most important to the district. So K, it shows that expenses that are incurred or activities that are in progress are already completed before the grant is approved. You should have heard me earlier say you cannot start your project until you receive final approval from the Rotary International, which is an email from me. When I receive reports, final reports, I look at receipts, I look at all that information, and if I see receipts that are dated and paid for prior to the date that I let you know your grant's been approved, it's going to be a problem. We're either not going to be able to fund that, or it's been funded. We may ask for those funds back. So again, remember, don't spend any money until after you've got final approval from myself, showing that Rotary National has approved it. M shows purchase of land or buildings. We just want to make sure where the district grants aren't used for purchase of land or buildings for any entity. R shows project signage. Several projects over the years that had involved signage. Some of them have been very costly. We've had signage on parks that have been in excess of $4,000 or $5,000 before. Rotary International, these are not district requirements, restrictions, but this is Rotary International saying project signage cannot cost more than $1,000. So again, if I'm looking through the budget, I see a project that has signage, I'm going to look at the dollar amount that's assigned to that. T, Randy kind of covered the unrestricted cash donations to a person or cooperating organization. Again, Rotary International is telling us that we do not want clubs to use district grants to write a check to a food pantry. It's happened in the past. We're being watched on this quite closely now. So if I see something like this that comes through, I'm probably going to get back with you and say, rethink this project. Either find a different project or find a way that you can commit that those funds will be used for the purchase of X product. And most importantly is, how are your club members going to be participating in that project? Because you have to show proof that your club is participating in a project, physically doing work on that project. Next slide, please. BB covers items that would be owned by a Rotary district, Rotary club, or Rotary club. There are some clubs in our district that own Rotary parks. And sometimes the idea comes that we want to do renovations to the park. District grant cannot be used for that because the park is owned by the district. So keep that in mind. It can't benefit anything owned or operated by the Rotary district, Rotary club, or Rotary club, or a club member. Next slide, please. Rotaract and Interact projects. District grants are available for Rotaract and Interact club projects. We have a number of Rotaract and a lot of Interact clubs in our district. And I'll share with you in 2 minutes that this is our first year that we've actually are funding a Rotaract project and an Interact project through the district grants. So they're available. Keep in mind that the Rotaract and Interact clubs in our district are supported by Rotary clubs. So any club application for a Rotaract or Interact club needs to be submitted through the organizing Rotary club, and that sponsoring club is responsible for all reporting, funds management, anything that has to do with that project that's going to be reported to me. The Rotary club is responsible for that. So next slide, please. What is some paperwork? Oops, I thought we changed this, Randy. Financial management plan goes to Randy. We'll have this corrected before it gets uploaded to the district website. The MOU gets sent to Randy, and the district grant application gets sent to me by June 30th. Just a notation below that, it shows a project proposal must be emailed in Word document format with the application. So the application is about a 7-page document. On page 2 of the application at the top is the project proposal. That is what we're talking about the project proposal. It contains 7 bullet points, 7 items, which includes the project, proposed project, the alignment with Rotary's mission, club participation, ownership, budget, start and completion dates. So you're going to see a new addition to the project or proposed project item number 1. Be short and concise. When you're describing the project, when I say it's Rotary National, don't want to hear a 10-year history about the food pantry and what they've done or what you've done to support something over the last 20 years. We want to know you're purchasing materials for this and how you're going to supply it with your club members. There's going to be a comment, and I just changed it last night, that bullet point shouldn't be more than 400 characters. Literally, I can guarantee you, looking back in the past 6 years, a third of the grant applications I've had, the project proposal, just the project proposal itself, the first bullet point, it's been 1.5 pages to 2 pages long. Ultimately, once we get to the approval process and I have to upload this to the Rotary International website, their screen only allows me to input 400 characters for a project proposal. So if you're sending me 2 pages worth, I've got to kind of guess for what I want to put in that for Rotary International to hopefully get them to approve it. So if you can move it down to 400 characters, that will be helpful. Next slide, please. Randy, did we have the right?
Yeah, I think this is last year's.
This is
looks like
last year's. I
Yep.
apologize. Evidently, this one came up instead of the other.
Okay, so 25-26 timeline, I apologize for that. We had it all updated. The new one will be updated on the district website. So grant applications come to me on June 30th. Can you just go to the next slide, please, Connie, and see what that says? Okay, go back, please. Okay. So all of your applications are submitted to me by June. Go back one more, I think. Thanks, Andreas. Up one. There we go. So the 25-26 timeline. By April of 2025, the application forms will be on the district website. They will be there before that. I have them all updated. I was ready to submit them to the district to be updated to the district website until last night. Randy and I attended a zone grant session. And as I was waiting for the session to open I thought, well, let me just double check and see if Rotary International has changed any of their terms and conditions. They usually change them every 2 or 3 years, and they changed them in January 2024 last year. Lo and behold, they changed them in June or July of 2024. So I'm reading those over now, Randy, just to make sure we have everything in compliance. So we'll have everything there.
Again, we have people with open mics that are distorting the audio.
So by April, at least, we'll have all the application forms out there. You can look in March and they should be there. June 30, 2025, not that far away now. Your application is due to me. Email, what I typically do when I receive the application, I will try and do a immediate cursory review. And if I have questions, I'll get back with you acknowledging I received your application and the questions I have. I'll be doing a thorough review of it a few days later and may get back with you with additional questions, but you'll get an email from me saying I received it. We'll have them all formulated in August. The district grant committee will meet, and that district grant committee will be consists of Randy as the foundation chair, myself, and the district governor. So we'll review and we'll know how many what kind of funding we'll have available from our DDF, from our Rotary National, and we'll formalize a request recommendation to the foundation committee that meets in September. September 2025, the foundation committee will review and hopefully recommend our pool of grants through Rotary International for final approval. At that time, I will also submit an email to you letting you know that you've made it through that round and it's being approved or being referred to Rotary International. And those emails have bold print that says that this is not a final approval. Do not start any part of your project until you receive the final approval from me. Next slide, please.
Well, Larry, I just want to stay in the slide just for a second on at June 30th date. In the perfect world, when would you like to see those grants submitted to you? Like earlier in June?
During the month of June. During the month of June, because it takes me time to go through an application, review it, do a thorough review. I can say out of usually 20 to 25 applications, I might get 5 or 6 in the first week in June, 1 or 2 in the second or third week in June, and 2/3 of them in the last week or the last day of the month. So it typically happens. But you should have a handle on it. You should be able to send it to me prior to that. Keeping in mind your club project, if you're doing things the proper way, your club project and the request for district matching grant, it should be going through your board to get approved for your club to work on. So that all needs to be taken into consideration. So in a perfect world, yes, May or June would be nice to have them, but that's why it's by June 30th. It gives me some time, gives me the month of July to do a thorough review of everything, to formulate a package to get to the grant committee in August to make a recommendation to the foundation committee. Next slide, please, Connie. After the foundation, can you go back? After the foundation committee meets, again, there's not a fixed date. We have to look at everyone's calendars, but typically the second or third week in September. But usually once that meeting's done, I run home and I start uploading everything into the Rotary International website and submit it, assuming all district grant reports are filed with Rotary International. And when I say that, the district has other projects, global grants that need periodic reporting, and they need to be submitted on time before Rotary International will accept our grant application package. Typically, if I have that done by November 1, 2025, I typically will have a response from Rotary International. If it comes to earlier, I'll let you know. And then I'll send an email out to the club saying, congratulations, your project's been approved. You can now start on the project. And with that approval email, is a form that requires submission of your club deposit account information. We require that every year because oftentimes banks change, accounts change, signers change, a lot of things change. So we ask for that every year. When I receive that, that gives me the indication that you would be ready to receive your portion of the disbursement of the funds. And I'll get into how that's handled in the next slide or two. District committee review process, we go back. Randy looks at making sure all the club requirements have been met, that preference is given to humanitarian projects if possible. We examine and we look at history of contributions to the Rotary Foundation. It's not required that contributions are made to the Rotary Foundation, but if you're asking for matching grant to Rotary Foundation funds, ideally your club's submitting and making contributions to the foundation. We look at recent grant activities of the club, and what that means is prior history. Have you submitted your reports on time? We're still cleaning up a little bit from COVID activities from a few years ago. We still have some past due reporting we're working on. Shouldn't be any past due reporting. I'll get into the reporting requirements here shortly. So we missed reporting deadlines will be looked at negatively. So we do have exceptions for new clubs. If we have a new club in our district that hasn't had the ability to start making contributions to the foundation, if you want to work on a project, we're willing to work with you on that. So next slide, please. Keep in mind that sometimes the district might be willing to fund your request at a lesser amount. And Randy mentioned sometimes we get requests for more than what we have available from DDF funding. So this past fiscal year, we were able to cover it all. Some years we don't have enough to cover. So we try to make an attempt to provide funding for each club that has at least one grant. You can file more than one grant. You can have 2 or 3 grant applications. Don't guarantee anything will be funded on these other ones. Sometimes if there are multiple applications and we don't have the funding, maybe we'll fund half or a third of your grant request. Typically, if that's going to happen, I'm going to call the project chair, let him know what's going to happen and see if will work with him or not. So just keep that in mind. When you get the final approval and you submit the form to me with the club deposit information, that's where you can request the first 50% of grant funds if your grant is over $1,000. So grants of $1,000 or less can be fully funded when you submit the form to me. Grants of $1,001 to $4,000, we disperse 50% of the grant amount when you submit the form. The remaining amount will be dispersed upon completion of the project, and you submit the final report to me, and it's completed. And again, third bullet points, the final 50% goes to a club after the final report's been submitted and completed. Hardship arrangements considered by the district. If you've got a $2,000 grant, it's been approved, and your club really needs the full $2,000, that you can't work on $1,000, work with me, call me. Let's talk about what's going on, so we can see what we're going to work out for you. This happened in the past. We typically try to work with clubs. So next slide, please. Looking at my watch list to make sure we're on time here. So project reports are due on May 1 of every year. So the project report on 25-26 projects will be due May 1, 2026. Keep in mind, if you're on the project, you currently have a project with the district in this current fiscal year, project reports are due May 1, 2025. Final reports are due within 2 months after project completion. Final reports, again, it's in all the application information. It says the receipts. You need to be able to track receipts for your projects. Bank statements showing that you handle the disbursements from the district funding. Participation documents and photographs. This is what's important. You see Joyce sitting by the bench. We need pictures. The applications requires a minimum 4 pictures of the project to hopefully show your club members working on that project. I take those in any way, shape, or form, and if I have the ability to convert them into a document that I can work with, I'll work with it. So if I don't, I'll let you know. So next slide, please. Do's and don'ts, do familiarize yourself with the reporting requirements, start the project. Don't forget to take photos. Again, designate somebody on a project to say, your job's to take pictures today. You know, that's all they do is take 8 or 10 pictures and you pick the best 4 to submit to me. That's great. And when you're submitting the application to me, one of the bullet points is the budget. The budget shows income and expenses. Income should be your club contributions, the proposed district grant, and any other funding sources. And then expenses should show expenses on the project. Remember that on your budget, income must equal expenses. So if you have more income than you have expenses, there's going to be a problem. If you have more expenses than income, I'm going to ask you who paid for the other expenses. So we just need to make sure your budget is in balance. Next slide, please. Again, if you have a large project, and we have a couple large projects out there, that don't report and submit receipts on the full project if it's more than the grant amount in your club contribution amount. We only want to track what your club's putting in and what the district is working with. If you can get your project publicized in media, great. Some bigger towns, we don't have that availability. A lot of smaller towns have the ability to get their projects in newspapers and other sources. So don't forget to ask for your money. When you get your final approval notice, remember to ask for money. 2024-25 cycle that we have right now, we have 2 clubs that haven't requested money yet. So we dispersed over half of the funds so far. So next slide, please. Wrapping up, this is not updated. The updated one will be on the district website. We apologize for that, but Randy is our project or foundation chair. I'm district grants chair. Andreas is global grants chair. Connie is our district administrator. Does a fantastic job. Thank you, Connie. What I want to do is just cover what I didn't point out was a district grant is not required to meet the Rotary's area of focus, unlike a global grant. If you're going to attend Andreas' session on global grants, he's going to let you know that a global grant must meet one of these 7 areas of focus. So district grants don't require to meet the areas of focus. You're going to find out 99.9% of your projects fit within one of these 7 areas of focus. So I want to close up my session part of it here before we cover questions by giving you an idea of what we funded for this current fiscal year. We have a club that's working with an organization called Sleep in Heavenly Peace, building beds for kids. Decided to do the whole project. A bed build for a day is $10,000 to build 40 to 50 beds. They applied for the max. They they're actually putting in 6,000 and got a match from a district for 4. So that's going to happen here in a few weeks. So dictionary for schools, a literacy grant, Christmas for needy families, cultivating creativity for a community. It's art murals in a little village or town that's going to beautify the town. So it's going to be great. Youth hygiene. Equipment for wrestling and strength conditioning for school. Christmas for kids. Again, we cut it close with funding by November 1, but it worked, I think. So mentorship programs, backpack programs, equipment and playground installations. So linens for family resource center, Legends build. This is a senior build. Seniors are selected by a community organization and for repairs that need to be done, and repairs are done for these individuals, which is great. Baby pantries, conscious discipline training, restoration house, zoo in the park, playground equipment again for a village, interact, bread basket for food pantry. Great. It's Rotary Love for Reading program. So it's great to have that. And we also did some funding for RILA. So interesting part in this current fiscal year, we had grants for $40,570 requests. We were able to fund it all. So we know if the district put in $40,570, the clubs put in at least $40,570. So it's $81,000. But the total project cost, I kept track of these for the last couple of years now because the budgets have the total project cost. Total project costs for this fiscal year are $199,570. So club district are putting 80 grand, 109 grand are coming from other sources. A lot of that is from the clubs themselves are putting in extra money. So great opportunity. Previous year was not as big spread, but it was pretty similar to this. So open to questions. We have a few minutes before 8 o'clock. So you can either put a question down in chat or you can unmute and see if we can cover you.
Yeah, Lori, I did put in my email and address in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah. So somewhere the PowerPoint that we got updated didn't make it to this presentation. So we apologize.
And then, this presentation is being recorded. Connie will have it uploaded to the district website. So if anyone needs to access it, they can. And if they do access it, they need to let Randy know. Randy can make a list of who's qualified and attended. So
We'll also have the correct PowerPoint uploaded to the website.
thank you, Connie. Any questions out there? There got to be some questions. Remember, you have to unmute if you want to say something now. So
You want serious ones or you want some flip questions just for fun? I was really thinking about a landmine project, Larry, you know,
you would.
I would, wouldn't I? At the
That's
Y.
not, that sounds more like a global grant.
Oh, yes. Putting in landmines.
Just keep in mind, I try to respond as quickly as I can to your request via either phone or email. So again, I typically try and turn around and respond on an email within 24 hours. My cell phone has a lot of spam filters on it. So what I typically will do is every time I receive an application with a project chair and two committee members, I input their name, address, city, state, zip, phone number into my cell phone. So if you call from that number, it will go through to me. If not, you'll go to my voicemail. I'll get your voicemail. I'll return the call. So I try to communicate and keep you in touch and as much as I can. So
Well,
We have a question in the chat. Can you provide any examples of previous successfully written grants?
I'm assuming you're asking for a copy of an grant application.
I'm gonna chime in with my voice because it might be easier. I'm new to the grant writing process. It's the first time I've attended the seminar and I'm just trying to get a good feel for what it looks like the finished product and how I
Okay.
can like look at that example and be like, oh yes, I need to do this, this and this. I'm also curious about you mentioned that there was a first time grant for Rotaract and Interact. And I'm curious what ideas we might have for those or any information about that as well.
The
Maybe I
Interact
just need
Rotary
to do the
grants,
process and learn from it the first time and then come back to you. I don't know.
the Interact Rotary grants can cover anything that they want to try to do that makes sense. It's not covered in their do not do list. Again, I mentioned that one Interact club this year did a food pantry. It was a small project. They asked for $1,000 and they put in $1,000 that they had from the Interact Club. Rotaract Club did a Love for Reading. It was a reading program. They only asked for $600. They put in $600. So it was a small project, but to them it's big. Yeah, it's a project that they worked with as college students. So it can be anything. It can be any of the ones I listed above. Yeah, just on a scale of what kind of funding do they have available. They need to be able to match dollar for dollar for the grant request. And if you would send me an email asking for information, I hesitate to send back copies of applications without clubs knowing about it because I don't want them to be blindsided. I know a club that I probably would be willing to do it for. So if you'd send me an email, I'll work with you on that.
Larry,
Yeah.
So Nancy, I have my grant application because I keep stuff in folders forever, and I found the one I did when I was club president, so it's a couple years old. But if you put your email in the chat or find me and just send me a chat direct, I'll send you a copy of that.
So Andreas, is that the one that the budget didn't balance?
Well, that's the one we ended up with $35 from the Y. The Y gave us $35 at the end because the benches cost a little bit more.
Okay.
Thank you, Andreas. I appreciate that.
Sure.
I thank everyone for being here today. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email, give me a call. Hopefully I have you on my cell phone. I can get it directly. If not, I'll return your call. We want to make sure that we are able to fund projects in your communities, our communities, and use the money properly. I don't think we have a handle on what the number is going to be for next year yet, do we, Randy? For DDF?
No, we do know that it's going to be less than this year.
It's going to be less than this year. So our DDF this year was 39,621. So it's going to be less than that somewhere. And you know, this year, this current fiscal year, we had 11 clubs submitted, 11 Rotary clubs submitted applications, one Interact, one Rotaract, plus one for the district for RILA. So we had a total of 21 requests totaling $40,500. So a lot of projects. So it was a great work. So we want you to be successful in your communities. We want to be able to use our funds, and we want to be able to work with you. So as long as you're willing to work with us, that's all we ask for.
Yeah, and to close it out, I just want to say and give a big thanks to Larry because he does a tremendous job on doing our district grants, and he's a good steward of our money. So just a thank you to Larry.
Randy, can I put one plug in?
Sure.
I've mentioned this to our foundation committee. If there's anybody on this meeting today that would like to do what I'm doing, be the district grants chair, I'm willing to work with you. I'm in my 7th year, and I think it's time to pass the baton. Told the foundation and Randy that I'm willing to work through the 25-26 fiscal year. It'd be nice to work with somebody during the 25-26 fiscal year. And 26-27, I'd like to be out of this. I'm still trying to clean up files for the last 6 years. I want to get that done. So I don't want to leave that as a burden to anybody. But if you have a passion for this, let Randy or I know. So
yeah. And also thank you to everyone who's on the call. And you all have big hearts for Rotary and your club and for really helping others. And you know, I'm proud of all of our clubs for what you do, and especially you for being on the call tonight. So just thank you very much. We look forward to this coming year with the district grants.
It's a good session. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.